Well, welcome to week 3. I can't believe we're on week
Hello?
3. And so Callithump Quilt Along week 3. So we're going to talk a little bit about sashing tonight and any other questions you have. I'm super excited. I have a new quilt behind me too that I finished that I started last. So the Hanukkah one is done. Let's see if I can back you up with me a little bit. I think it came out. I think it came. Whoops. Oh, I think you can see that. My computer keeps doing this weird thing, but I thought it came out really well. And I like how the gold pop color worked out on that one.
That's cute.
Now I did do something tricky here, so we'll talk, and I'll bring it out again next week. If you can see that I used a border fabric on the borders, and so I decided instead of doing regular, I mitered the corners so that it would go around the corners. And of course, that's the worst corner. It actually worked out really well. So I just wanted it to look continuous. But so I'm happy that was my project this week. And I was going to do another one, but we had a little family emergency and I ended up making another project. So this is not Callithump, but if you go on my YouTube page, there is a thing about emergency quilts. So we had a little family emergency and I needed to make a quilt. And so, right, you don't really need a quilt pattern, most of us, to do 10-inch squares, right? But this does give you the sizes and how many squares of everything. So if you need to ever make an emergency quilt, it's fast and there's no quilty math and you can just get it done. So I had the quilt was cut out and I had it pieced all in like maybe 2.5 hours because it goes really fast. And then I was able to quilt it the next day. So sometimes we have those issues in our lives. And so quilters tend to be very generous people. So if you watch the video, it's actually the download button for that. And that's just kind of a nice thing to maybe tuck in a page protector and keep around somewhere if you ever need it. So sashings. So on this pattern, when you're a pattern designer, you have to kind of decide, how am I going to do this? And I really didn't want cornerstones in this one. So I did not.
Yes, you did.
Do cornerstones. So in this pattern, they just keep going. So that's how I designed it. So that makes it a little bit tricky sometimes to line up. So I just wanted to tell you, and I'm a piecing cheater. I'll tell you that right now. I'm one of those people who just sews all my borders together and I sew it on and I clip it off. And that's how I do borders too. Okay. I'm not one of those good measure in 3 places, but I do have it's not a walking foot, but kind of a dual feed foot on my machine. And I think that helps so that things don't get wonky when I'm doing that. So when you're putting the sashing on, so you're going to put the sideways pieces on. So you'll have the block and then you're going to put in the sideways piece. Let's see. I'm going to use Teresa's quilt for this. I'll use mine. It's a little easy. I know which way I went on this one. So here's my Christmas Callithump. And so I used the ho fabric. So on the sides of the block, I have the sashing pieces. So when I put the blocks together, I put the sashes on that way. And then the long pieces go horizontally. So what I have done on some of them is if you cut the sashing to the right length, then I would pin on each side. And I like to kind of pin in the middle to make sure that things are going to be lined up, because I am not a perfect quilter. I'm not Nicole. Kristen and I have a friend named Nicole who is one of the Deb Tucker 180 ladies. I mean,
overachiever piecer.
I mean, she's perfect. And yeah, that's not me. But I'm mostly self-taught too. So
I'm sorry, honey.
It's fine.
Let's see if I can and I'm just muting you, okay, so we don't hear you, but I hope you can still hear me. So what I do when I put so now I have rows with the sashing and then I have the long pieces. So the first time you sew the piece on, it's no big deal. The hard part is when you're adding the second piece. And I am one of those people, and I'll tell you that you should never point out your mistakes, but so what I do is when I try really hard to get this line, when I'm pinning this on, I'm gonna make sure that this line right here and this line up. And you can see that that's not perfect. It's pretty close. It's probably no more than a 16th or an 1/8 off, but it's not perfect. And I'm okay with that because with the 3 inches of space, I don't think your eyes see that. All right. And especially once we know that the magic is in the quilting. So once we quilt it, that's really going to disappear. So that's the only thing you have to worry about when you're putting the bindings on. I mean, not the bindings. Oh, the sashing. And so that is one time where I actually do pin. So every time I have a place where I need it to line up, I do pin it before I sew it. So when I put the first edge on, I don't care about that one. But when I'm putting that second, when I'm putting the 2 pieces together, I'm making sure that those sashings line up. So did you have any trouble doing that, Kristen? I see that you've got one behind you all put together.
So I much like you said, when I had laid my row on top of it, I just really was aware that where it was falling, I tried to get it as close to that. And honest, like you said, I think with the difference in the size of the sashing, I mean, I think they came out fine. I didn't notice anything that I can't live with. And perfection's overrated. So
well,
like you said,
once you
the
quilt
magic.
it, really.
Yep, I think I'm gonna find myself some holly berries.
Well, quilting takes away probably 30% of the mistakes, and then washing it takes out at least 50% because once it starts to crinkle up a little bit.
Oh, not the quilt I quilted today. Oh boy. I'm just gonna leave it there.
So Michelle, I see you there. Are you a long armor?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
So I do you know Diane Henry?
Yes.
Okay, so I knew Diane when she got her very first handy quilter with the computer, which is my son was a baby and he's now 17. So I've always kind of been jealous from afar, and just and we've been touching base, and I was like, okay, if I was doing this, what would you do? And she's like, for what you're probably going to want to do, if you can get a used Avante with a pro stitcher, that's probably going to be exactly what you need. So 2 years ago, there was a used Avante. It did not have a pro stitcher, but I was like, you know what? Brand new pro stitcher comes with its own warranty and designer. So I have a used Avante with a new pro stitcher, and I've had it for about 2 years.
Everyone who has an Avante loves it.
Love my Avante. She's right behind me.
See?
Where do you live, Michelle? Trouble. Knock on wood.
I'm in Houston.
Okay, Houston. Awesome. Nice. I just think it's so fun that this quilting world, we're all over the place. We're coast to coast here. We've got Utah, Massachusetts, and California, and Texas, and I'm not sure where everyone else is from, but that's just really fun. Definitely. So I think that putting the sashings on is really not that hard. I kept it this way because I did want it. I mean, I wanted this pattern to be easy and fun. And I just thought the less fussy, the fewer pieces you have, the less fussy it gets. So that was kind of my thought process. So
you don't,
and then once you have those together, the rest of it goes really fast. Yeah. Carolyn?
You don't connect the 2 pieces together like with a diagonal line. You're just you're butting them next to each other and just sewing them together. Okay,
that's what I
just checked.
Yeah, that's what I've done. And honestly, I don't. So there's one right there, which if I had picked, I probably wouldn't have picked it there. There's one here. There's one here. I did try to, because you're going to have a longer piece and a shorter piece. So I do try to kind of flip it so that they don't all those little sashing seams don't land in the same place, because then I think it just might catch your eye. But mine kind of moved around, and I just do it. Yeah, I just did a little straight seam. Yep, there it is right there. And I do
Okay.
press those open. So I'm glad you said that. So on my sashings, I do press them open just because then they're super flat. And they don't have the
Okay.
little bump on one side.
Right. Okay.
But most of the time I am a press to the dark person, but that's one of the places, we all have our little funny idiosyncrasies. That's one of mine, is when I'm doing a border or a sashing and I'm just straight joining it, I press those open. So
Okay.
so have you picked all your fabrics, Carolyn?
I have. So I got my block together.
Oh, look at
Oh, the
that. Where's
kitties
my
again.
glass?
That's cute.
Cute.
Yes, that is.
And then I chose a gray. So I'm gonna put, it's hard to tell, I don't have a lot of light here. Yeah. Oh,
Kind of a
that's real bad.
gray.
Yeah. So then and then I'm gonna do gray
Yeah.
Oh, pretty.
in
That's gonna be really
between
nice.
all this, yeah, all the squares. And then I'm doing a different, I'm not doing the black for the, for the whatever you call it, the zinger. So I'm
Yep,
gonna do this. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
gonna
that'll
do
be
this
great.
instead, and then I'll have a black border.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's going to be so
I have
fun.
it all. Yeah, I really like the colors, and I have it all laid out on the wall. Now I just gotta get caught up with Kristen and get it all sewed together.
I had Wednesday off in my defense. I had a good time.
I have
So I
every
was
day
planning
off.
on
I
doing the
retired.
flower but yesterday I spent doing this. I have, whoops, they're upside down. So here are the next two patterns coming out.
Ooh.
So I'm actually submitting this one. So I'm taking a pattern writers course, and I actually had to have this one ready by tomorrow to submit. They're going to pick two to do free tech editing on, and I wanted to for sure do that. I usually don't do that, tech editing, but so that's kind of a fun thing. So those will be coming out later. And honestly, both, I know that this looks tricky, but it's really simple. There's only 3 different types of blocks. It's just that you keep turning things, and some of the blocks are this way and some of the blocks are this way, and it makes it look like confetti. So that's fun. All right, so I have a problem. So I need you guys to vote. So some of you know that I have been struggling with the whole knee, and I think the infection's pretty well beaten down now. And so my husband decided 2 days ago that he's going to a meeting in Florida the first week of December. And I was like, well, I want to go. Hello. And he's like, well, I think we should. And I said, well, it's still in my 12 weeks. I'm not supposed to fly for 12 weeks. He's like, you're fine. So he booked us cruise tickets for the week before he has to be in Florida. So that includes the night of the 30th, which is my problem. So I'm trying to decide. So what I was thinking that I would do is, instead of having a live show and tell, and we were going to pick the grand prize that night, I'm just not sure how my internet's going to be on the ship. So I was thinking that what I could do is just, what do you guys think about this? If we just have people send in pictures of the quilt top, and then we just choose from those, do you think that's okay, and not do a live event that night? And then I send it out. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
That
that's
works.
fine.
Okay.
Either that, or there's always the week after when
And
you're
we
in
could do
Florida.
the week after. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that would
it's
be
longer
like
to get it
December.
finished.
I was just trying to stay away from December because I just know it's hard for people. So should I stay with the night and go live in December, and give everyone an extra week, or should we do it on the 30th and just do pictures? What do you think?
I'm game for
I would
either
do
or.
it. I would do
Kristen's like,
December.
I got mine done anyways.
Yeah, because it's
Kristen
kind
wins
of
already.
fun to see them. It's fun to see them live, and
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
and the person to just say, this is what I did. This went well, or whatever. I mean, that's just kind of the whole fun part about it.
I agree
So
with
And
that.
how
I don't mind
about
if we
this?
wait till December.
I will do it a week later because I'll be home then. Let's do that. And then, but if people are busy that night, since it is December, I will let them, they won't have to be live. I'll let them send in pictures because they might not have scheduled that for that night. Does that sound
That's fair.
fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Definitely.
do that because I'm pretty excited that I get to go on a cruise. Okay, but this is funny. So we're gonna go on the cruise and we have to be in Florida for like 2 days. And then he's like, and then I want to go to Maine so we can go to all the Christmas concerts. And I'm like, okay, because we have a home in Maine for those of you who, that's why I know all my New Hampshire and Massachusetts people. And I was like, how does one pack for going to the Caribbean and Maine in December?
It's not going to be a light suitcase.
No, I think we're gonna have an extra suitcase with just sweaters and coats. We'll just not open it on the cruise. But
Just ship
well,
it here
thank
and pick it up on your way by.
I'm so glad. Are you guys having fun with this pattern? What do you think, Carolyn? Do you like, was it easy to put
I
that block
do.
together?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
very easy. The hard part is just getting it all cut out. But yeah, just the
Yeah.
time to cut it out. That's not my favorite thing
It's
to
not
do.
hard cutting.
No, it's not hard cutting. It's just not my favorite thing to do.
I know.
But yeah, but as far as sewing it all together, and once I got the black on, because I'm doing it directional, I had to make sure that I got that on first, and then the rest of it was easy. I just
Right.
wanted to, so
Yeah,
that was
it
the
is.
only
So
thing for
so
me.
for those of you who weren't here last time, the hardest part of this whole quilt is getting the pop of color on, especially if you're doing directional, because you got to make sure that you have enough of them going in the right directions. Okay. And I did show this last week. So if you haven't seen, sorry, it's behind my computer. So I didn't have enough fabric to do this one. I didn't have enough fabric to do the 4 rows, which is what the throw usually is. So I had to shrink it up. So I did color this one in so that I could see. I figured out, okay, I need 2 that are in the upper right, those 2. And so that I knew how to turn them. And honestly, once you get that first triangle on and you've got them all facing the right way, it just kind of flies.
Yeah.
So
I didn't have to worry about that. I was
yeah, and if I
non-directional.
was just gonna say, if you're not doing directional, it is super easy. So
Hence, I'm
the
done.
direct ups the difficulty level, but
Now, what
well,
size did you do?
so
Did you do
this
a
is
throw? Queen?
so it's kind of a mini throw. This is not one of the sizes. So but I only where I ran into trouble was with fussy cutting out the menorahs. And I bought this fabric in Maine, so I couldn't get any more of it. And so I fussy cut. I was able to get 13 out, which I needed 12. And so I just that's why I shrank it up. So I did have to do some the measurements and things that I have in my pattern. I had to shrink up a little bit for this one, but I think it's plenty big enough for, I think it ended up being 60 by 72. So that's a great throw
plenty.
size still, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking a baby, but it seems bigger than even
yeah,
a baby.
it is. No, it's bigger. It's pretty big. So technically that could even be, if we did, you could do this size and do a quilt of valor because it fits in that. So that would be fun. I have all sorts of patriotic fabric, so I might have to do one that way too, because that's a lot of fun. All right. Well, tonight was pretty easy because it's just sashings. And next week will probably be pretty short too. But I sure
Okay,
appreciate
can I
seeing your
show
faces.
can I show you what I picked?
Yes,
Yes.
we want to see.
So I was trying really hard to actually get something sewed today, but it did not happen.
We
So-
all have those days.
So I was let's see, switch my camera. So I was, and welcome to my really messy room. So I'm like, oh,
We
do
all
I
have
have
those
anything
too.
that's big? And so like, oh, I've got some panels, maybe something from the panels. So that's the panel. And it turns
Okay.
out this from like, here to here gets you the 6.5. So
Okay.
it'll be a little bit of the outside color. So
Could you just could you just trim it and then just maybe do the outer use that as the pop of color and not add a piece, and then just, that's what
Oh.
I'm wondering if you can just add outside pieces.
Oh, because I was like, well, and because there's so many colors, like it's basically
I know,
kind of
it's
one
awesome.
of each of the rainbow.
Love that.
Like, what am I gonna do? So I started pulling some stuff, and I was like, well, there's no black, there's no white, maybe that'll work. So and Kay, you made me learn today. So I went in and went to Electric Quilt, because there's 9 that don't repeat.
Okay.
I was like, okay, if I do a 3x3, that'll be cool. So I had to learn so many things today. I
You had
really
a big
learned a lot
day.
about electric quilt today. So that ended up, so the pop, and plus I was looking for, okay, what do I own that I don't have to buy anything and it'll work? So this
Right.
kind of not quite as bright orange. So you can see what it looks like next to the orange.
It looks great though.
And then the next one, so that there was for the contrast, I did this white. And then I've got this crazy kind of check. And then for the sashing, went with a black, because there's so many colors. It's like you got to have something to break it all up. And then I have tons of this. So this is my villain fabric.
That's going to be perfect.
Awesome.
And I'm so glad you're using things out of your inventory, because, we buy the stuff and we liked it when we bought it. We just don't know what to do with it all the time. So that's super fun.
Well, and I buy a lot. I mean, the things that make me, I'm like, oh, that's so fun. It was like when my son was in probably preschool, and he's going to graduate from high school this year. So I've got all of these fun kind of juvenile things. And I'm either gonna have to wait for people to have grandchildren, or I was like, you know what? This will make a nice baby size, and there's enough on that panel that I could make 2 more. So,
Wow.
so if I like it, then I can make 2 more.
Awesome. So that's super fun.
I
like what you're doing there. So I'm looking forward to seeing some more done maybe next week. That'll be great.
So yeah, and I'll tell you what, I really did. I learned so much on electric quilt, because I was like, first I just put it in and it had all the cornerstones. I'm like, well, I don't know how to get rid of these cornerstones. So then I learned how to set up a quilt that has the long vertical strips. I've never done that. And then I learned how to use the fussy cutting thing with like when you import a fabric. I felt like a rock star today.
I was gonna say, that's not all that easy. So good job. That's awesome.
I've never even touched that.
So I've had several people ask me to do some classes on EQ8, and I love EQ8. I've used it. I've used EQ8 longer than I've been a long armor. Okay, so a long time. But I am not using it for these patterns. Now I'm using for these one, and especially sometimes when you have something that's weird like this, it's almost a little easier to do in Illustrator. So I'm using that. But for something like this, EQ8, perfect. But sometimes EQ8's a little tricky to get the off kilter kind of things. You can use the custom setup, but you have to already, you have to kind of set them up and then put them in. So that's awesome. Good job today, Michelle. Woo!
Yeah.
That's really great.
So thank you for inspiring me to, I tried things that I have never tried, which that's kind of one of the things I like doing with quilting, is like, I haven't done that before. I want to try that.
That's awesome. Well, and it's just, you learned a new skill today that you never know when you might need to pull that out, but you're going to feel so much more confident the next time you need to use it. So that's awesome. Oh, Kitty. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you're having fun with Callithump. And next week we'll talk about borders, and I want to see more things done. Kristen, you get it. You don't have to do another one. Okay, you're free.
I have a challenge quilt for long arm club that I have to start. So for the NEQE coming up, so I have to get myself moving on that. I gotta still figure out what I'm doing. So I'm working, my head's spinning on that. So I said, I'll get this done, then I can work on that. And
There you go.
but this was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed making it, and I definitely think I'll make some more of them when but I'm trying not to. I'm not doing any block of the months this year. It's my resolution. No block of the months for 2024. Just like fun, easy things, maybe sporadically, like something like this. But I have so many projects that I have bought, like she said, and never used them. So I'm like, this is my year that I'm gonna bust through my inventory.
Your inventory. It's so much classier than saying your stash. Huh?
That's
All right, you guys, I will see you next week. Take care and
Bye,
be
Kaye.
well.
Bye,
Happy
Kaye.
fun. Have a good week.
Thank you. You too.